In the name I am that I am, son of tomorrow, I call forth the light of the living word, beloved Elohim, beloved archangels, beloved mighty Choans of the rays and the lords of Karma. I call for the action of beloved Pallas Athena, beloved goddess of liberty, beloved Nada, beloved Kuan Yin, beloved Portia, beloved great divine director, beloved all-seeing eye of God, Cyclopeia. Let God's will be done, let God's will be done, let God's will be done. I do in the action of the sacred fire in this hour, descend on mighty cosmos, secret rays. I am the holding of the balance of Lord Gautama Buddha, beloved Sana Kumara and the seven holy Kumaras. I call upon the sacred fire, I call upon the light of God that never fails. Beloved mighty, I am present, come forth in this hour of the victory. Come forth in this hour of the victory of the God flame. I demand the full power, beloved mighty, be with us this night. Beloved Jesus, send to me, Lord mighty, Gautama and Sana Kumara. Come Lord now in the victory of the God flame. Send the light of 10,000 suns. Beloved mighty, stand, mighty, stand, mighty, stand. Around this fortune now. I call upon the great window sunlight. I call upon the light of God that never fails. Beloved is stand, beloved is stand, beloved is stand. I call upon the electronic solar rings of the great central sun, the seraphim of God. I call for the electronic fire rings. I call for the rings of the great central sun.
Good morning and welcome to another edition of Free Association Radio. This manifestation of the rich and varied programming that you receive here at Free Association Radio is navigating the astrological matrix. And if you're new to the program or new to what I do, this is the part of the ever-expanding, vastly increasing network where I do astrological readings. We talk about astrology. Sometimes I have other astrologers on. And I do readings. And today we're going to be talking about the upcoming Venus transit, which happens on it's really around the 5th to the 6th of June. The 6th is a Wednesday, so that's really a week from today, isn't it? Yes, it is. And the Venus transit's pretty intense. I mean, the last time it happened was in 2004. And I believe it was June 8th in 2004, if I'm not mistaken. And I went back to that day just to see what was happening. And that was the day that the United States government declared Iraq a republic. So it was obviously after Iraq had been, quote unquote, liberated. And they, were very secure in the fact that it was a new country now, and that happened during the Venus eclipse, the Venus transit. So the Venus transit won't be happening again for another 150 years. It's kind of an odd thing. It happens either in June or in late November or December, which, depending upon where Venus is in Sagittarius at the time, would determine when it shows up. So it won't happen again for another 150 years. It's a big deal, folks. It's a very big deal. It's a big deal because Venus is headed backwards. It's in retrograde motion at this time. And I got to tell you, the Venus retrograde in Gemini has been pretty profound and continues to be profound. And a lot of the time we want to dismiss Gemini, or at least sometimes I do, dismiss Gemini as being trivial. And it's a lightweight sign. It's got that kind of reputation in the zodiac, right? But it's not at all. I mean, Gemini is a really essential, critical, and pretty important sign/psychological aspect in the chart of not only the individual, but in the chart of this country, the United States of America, which, by the way, has Venus in Gemini. Let's just make sure here. I want to get the Sibley chart out. Let me do the Sibley chart, and we'll go over together. I should know this by heart, by the way. There's no excuse for me not knowing this. Sibley charts. I do use the Sibley chart, by the way. That is my chart, or the chart that my default chart. So let's see. Let's go to Venus here. And yes, and Venus is in Cancer. My bad. It is Mars in Gemini. Mars in Gemini with the southerly chart. Venus in Cancer at 3 degrees southerly chart. But Mars is in the 7th house of the U.S. chart, which begins at 12 degrees Gemini. So the Venus transit will actually be conjunct the U.S. descendant and oppose the U.S. ascendant. And it will also be conjunct the U.S. Uranus, also in Gemini. It will be off by about 7 degrees. So the Venus transit at 15 degrees will be placed right between Mars and Uranus at that time. Venus is in the 7th house, as I mentioned, and so since the 12th house, the 7th house does encompass, Venus and Jupiter. Venus does have this sort of, it has a connection with Gemini, since Gemini actually opens up the house in the chart. So even though Venus is in Cancer, there is a connection, there is a relationship to Gemini based on its relationship to the house itself. So it should be interesting in terms of the Venus transit and Venus retrograde. It's funny, in the past couple of days, I've been noticing quite a few news stories that are related to Venus Williams. It was like, Venus Williams was being profiled on her play in the tennis court recently. Venus Williams was having some of her favorite recipes and sports nutrition tips being highlighted by Yahoo. I think the convergence between reality and astrology, whether it is programmed and dialed in to actually show up at a certain time. Like, so there's one school of thought, right? Like there are these, arcane, esoteric, dark alchemists who are aware of everything. They're aware of, all the angles, all the transits, all the planets, fixed stars, you name it. It's just a giant canvas for them to mix and match means, events, rituals, you name it. It's all there for their disposal. That's one school of thought. And I've talked about this before. If you go back far enough, you go into Elizabeth I and her relationship with John Dee, the court astrologer. Now, everything was mapped out via astrology and then some with John Dee. And that tradition continues, by the way. It has not gone away. It's not abated. There's a court astrologer in England. There's court astrologers in probably just about every government on the face of this planet. And yes, even Obama has an astrologer. So there's one school of thought that people, events, places, well, I don't say places, the people and events are manipulated by the quote-unquote powers that be based on the alignment of the stars. So, for instance, is there somebody behind a curtain that pulls a lever and says, okay, now it's time to unleash the Venus Williams meme? Because, of course, we're talking about Venus, and Venus is a very important aspect right now. Venus represents the morning star, the day star. It represents Lucifer to some people in esoteric lore, that this is the rise of Lucifer as it crosses the face of the sun. So, hey, all right, let's open Venus Williams. There's the lever, Venus Williams. Okay, we get it. Venus Will I Am, right? Or is it really just an outgrowth and expression of some archetypal rendition of reality? Tapping into the Carl Jung collective unconscious, mytho-poetic significance. Is this, is she really just a living symbol that we pull out of our psyche, or emerges from our psyche as a result of the Venus transit? Somewhere in the middle lies the truth. That's my feeling. Because there are organic expressions of the Venus transit. I'll give you an example, or Venus retrograde. This is a good one. The other day I was reading this story about a kid in high school, and I think he was in Illinois or Missouri. He might have been in St. Louis. Don't quote me on that. But it was in Illinois or Missouri. And he bought a Polaroid camera at a garage sale. And he pulled the Polaroid camera apart, and he found a photo in there that had actually developed in the camera. And he pulled it out, and he showed his grandmother. And the picture was from the 1970s. That's how long it had been in the camera. And the photo was his uncle that he had never met. And he showed his grandmother, who was the mother, obviously, of his uncle. So his, father or sister's brother, I don't know what the connection was. But he shows her the picture, and she's floored. She's stunned that that's her son that shows up in this Polaroid. Now, to me, this is really a very interesting example of Venus retrograde, because we're going back in time. We're literally resurrecting the image and the relationship of somebody who had passed. The guy was dead. He died, okay? And here the kid pulls out this Polaroid during this Venus retrograde, and it's like, smack your hand against your head. Wow, this is amazing. This is clearly a very Venus retrograde kind of experience. Literally resurrecting the relationship from the mists of time, right? Here's another one. It's the story of this young woman who wrote a speech. And it was this commencement speech. And it was about hope and enthusiasm and really positive change. And she died. And they read her speech at this commencement ceremony. It was her college graduation. And here's another example of a relationship of a person coming out from behind the curtain, behind the veil, which we consider the past, outside of time-space, impacting people's lives. So a lot of what the Venus retrograde is about is not only re-examining and looking back on your relationship to various relationships in your life, but it also is an opportunity for us to examine the nature of relationship in general. Just because people aren't in bodies doesn't mean that they're not always here, or they're not influencing our lives, or they're not even alive inside of us. And I know for some people that have lost somebody near and dear to them, this is a very difficult concept to wrap your head around, because it's just challenging. And I never ever want to trivialize the loss of somebody in another person's life, ever. But at the same time, there is this realization that people, their life force, their energy, their psychic imprint is with us. It's in our cells, number one. The holographic image of them lives inside of us. We cannot deny that. Now, maybe the influence from that image begins to fade, since they're not charging it all the time, but it's still inside of us. And then their etheric charge, who they are, their ectoplasmic imprint in the environment around us is with us. And then every now and then we are graced with the visage of somebody that we've known. A good friend of mine had this happen to him a couple of years ago, where there was a young man who had babysat his daughter. And his daughter is a sweet, wonderful young woman who has Down syndrome. And he had watched his daughter when she was young. And my friend was close to him and really liked him. Well, turns out that this young man got killed at a railroad track in California. It was in, I believe, near Gilroy or Morgan Hill, south of San Jose. And my friend, of course, knew this, and he was deeply saddened by this event, because he was close to him and his daughter. And about a year and a half after this young man had passed, he literally manifested in physical form to my friend in my friend's garage. Now, my friend is one of these people who is spiritual without the spiritual attire, without the spiritual accessories. He's one of the most spiritual people I've ever met in my life. But he would never say that to you. There's no outward show of his spiritual core. He's a Sagittarius. I think he's got 3 planets in Sag. And so for him to see this guy manifest, this young man manifest in physical form right in his garage and talk to him was mind-blowing. It was paradigm shattering. And it was not the only time that he did this for my friend. He did this on 2 occasions. So with the Venus retrograde, one of the things that we can open ourselves up to is the possibility that people that have been near and dear to us to return in some form, especially as it relates to family. Because when we look at the story of the Polaroid and the young man having his uncle manifest, that's Gemini, that's brothers and sisters, right? That was I believe his father or his mother's brother. I can't remember which one, but that was clearly a very Gemini, Venus retrograde Gemini kind of moment. And what about the Venus retrograde for this young woman? She wrote that speech while she was in high school. And Gemini is all about, early education, all the way up really through high school. That's Gemini. We get to a little bit of high school and vocational learning in the 6th house of Virgo, but you can just pretty much wrap Gemini up into the 3rd house from K through 12 in a lot of ways. So during this retrograde, expand your relationship to relationship. I'm working on it. I got to tell you, I got crushed. I got crushed just days after the eclipse. Running up to the eclipse, I had a huge amount of anxiety. And I was just, really wrestling with it and grappling with it. It was very intense. And I was looking at it from a global perspective because that's where I live. I live in the 9th, 10th, and 11th houses. That's where my planets are. So I'm always looking out there. I am the Indian Scout on the periphery. That's where I am. That's where I always live my life. And seldom do I kind of look into my own life as to how this aspect could affect me. Because I've just been trained with all these planets, in Uranus and Pluto in the 9th, Pluto conjunct my midheaven, true node conjunct my midheaven, exact conjunction, Sun in the 10th, Venus, Mercury, Moon, Neptune, all in the 11th. So my gaze is out there. And yeah, this Venus retrograde was taking place in my 7th house of relationships. And I knew that it would have some impact. And the eclipse itself was also there in a big way. And I knew it would have some impact, but I didn't know how immediate that impact was. In the days that followed the eclipse, I had just an absolute thunderbolt come to me, a thunderclap come to me from my ex-wife. And literally a very minor event erupted into a full-scale Pompeii-like volcanic explosion in my life. And so the anxiety I was feeling was much more personal than it was collective. And this is a challenge that we have now as well. Anxiety is a very real thing. It's not necessarily something to just go run off and take a pill for. Anxiety is a state that brings us a sense of awareness that is outside of space and time. Because we are instinctual beings. We are animals, okay? And animals are instinctual. We have intuitive awareness. Animals can sense earthquakes before they happen. Animals have highly refined survival skills. If they didn't, they would die. Their lives and the lives of their brood depend on their survival skills. And we have them as well. So our survival skills are even more finely attuned and acute if we allow them to come into our lives, because we are more complex than animals. I'm not, you know, I love animals. And yet, let's be honest here. I mean, we're more complex than they are. And they've got their own unique experience and their own unique contribution to life on this planet. And anybody that's spent any time around a cat or a dog, you know, real serious time, will understand that these are really very sophisticated beings in their own right. But we're more complex. So when we have anxiety, it's not just the relationship that we have to the people in our own immediate sphere. It is the collective at large as well. You know, we are the psychic barometers for our own tribe, or for our own brood, or for our own herd. And some of us, well, we're the windmills. You know, we're the canaries in the coal mine. And so when the breeze of discomfort or ill winds blow across the landscape, the inner landscape, the planes of our consciousness, people like myself and others out there will sit down and say, well, what does this mean? How does this feel? Where is this taking me? What's happening in the greater milieu? And oftentimes we'll miss it, and it'll be in our own lives. So anxiety is something to pay attention to. It's not something to allow you can't allow anxiety to dominate you. But hanging out with anxiety is really a pretty important step in self-mastery, because there's something in that anxiety or that anxious state that is there that you can learn from. I remember one time I was actually dating a Gemini, and I had this weekend with her. This was back in college, and I was doing everything in my power to shift this anxiety that I had with her in this weekend, and I couldn't do it. I was doing everything I could, and I just had this feeling that something terrible was going to happen when I was connecting with her on this weekend. Sure enough, boy, it did. It did. And I'll spare you the details because it's very personal. But it was, again, this, you know, sense of trying to figure out and hang out with something that was really uncomfortable. And, you know, there are times where you just can't do anything, and you have to wait until the storm breaks. You have to wait until the thunder cracks, right? I mean, this is kind of how we are at times. And then it clears, then the storm clears, and then you have the opportunity to have a fresh and renewed inner landscape. So the Venus retrograde and the upcoming Venus transit might bring a sense of anxiety to your life. But it can also bring a sense of resolution as well. What you want to do, or at least what I would suggest that you do during the Venus retrograde, is to really re-examine your relationships. Because once Venus moves forward, and once it moves into Cancer, I think that there's a major reset that can happen in relationships across the board. Because Venus in Cancer is about being nurtured. It's about being loved. And it's about nurturing and loving back. So with Venus in Gemini and Venus retrograde, you know, we're being given some tools to go in and, you know, and tighten some bolts, you know, take some WD-40 and hit some of these joints, you know, with some lubricant, you know, loosen things up, deconstruct, fine-tune, calibrate. You know, figure out, you know, where you've gone wrong, because it's not always the other person. Many times it's you that have gone wrong, you know, or have taken actions to alienate another person. And why is that? Look, I've got the biggest microscope anybody can have in my own life. So anyway, this is a great time during the Venus retrograde to ask questions. What do you want in a relationship? What are you willing to give? Who are you looking for? You know, part of this whole thing with the Venus retrograde, when you look at Gemini, it's a column. It's two. It's duality. It's two as one, theoretically. It is an unrealized one, but it is a one nonetheless. The two is one. That is the mystery of Gemini. So we have during this time, during this Venus retrograde and during the Venus transit, especially as it matches against the Sun, right? Again, we're talking very alchemical here. Venus, Aphrodite, and the Sun, source of life, that we can attune ourselves to relationships of destiny on the other side of the Venus transit. Now, I'm not going to say that everybody's going to wake up after the Venus transit and magically their soulmate will teleport into bed next to them. That's not necessarily what I'm saying, but I will say that the opportunity and the chances of people meeting really important people in their lives, people that they can hold on to, grow with, be nurtured by in the days and the weeks and the months and the years to come, it's here now, okay? You must pay attention. You've got to pay attention because we are entering into a vortex, into a linear accelerator like you will not fucking believe, all right? I don't know if you're paying attention, but something very strange just happened in Miami a few days ago. Some of you may know what I'm talking about. Just a few days ago, there was a naked man on the streets of Miami who had somehow managed to subdue a passerby and was eating the face of the passerby. Think about that, eating the face. If you can't wrap your head around that, if you can't imagine what that would look like, well, you're not asleep. It's just that your brain has no reference point, okay? No reference point at all. I've seen the face, and it was troubling. It was a troubling image. I've seen the face. The man that was eating the face had to be shot by the police 8 times to have him stop. 8 times. Think about that. The other day in New York City, another man took a knife, opened up his stomach, and started ripping his intestines out and throwing them at passersby. This is the type of world we're headed into, ladies and gentlemen. I hate to say it, but we are about to enter into a horror movie on many levels. And so you need people. You need people in your life that can nurture you. You need people in your life that you can feel safe with. It's very important. And the Venus retrograde is about the reset. It's about being able to allow these people to come into your life and to build with them and to grow with them. Don't miss this opportunity. It's very significant. Very, very significant. Okay, let's see what we've got here in terms of callers. We've got a couple people waiting online. So today I was going to do something a little bit different. Today I was going to do some astrological readings, but I was going to do some psychic readings as well, which I haven't done in a long, long time. And the whole thing with doing psychic readings, it's kind of tricky. You kind of got to drop into a space a little bit, and it's a rhythm and a sense and a feel kind of experience. And I haven't really. I mean, so when I do astrological readings, I do connect with a psychic or an intuitive part of my being and quote unquote mind. Which is part of the experience, but just doing a straight reading without a chart is a very different experience. All right, let's bring on the first caller of the day. Let's find out who they are and where they're calling from and what they want to talk about. Hi, you're on the air with Robert. How are you?
What area
Hello?
code?
Yeah, hey, thanks for holding. What's your name?
Holly.
Hi, Holly. Where are you calling from?
Seattle. I've called you before.
Oh, yeah, Holly. Yeah, that's right. Holly, the liberated woman. What's going on?
I am trapped with my ex-husband financially.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see him leaving and me keeping the apartment, or me leaving?
Okay, so it's Venus retrograde, right? This is actually a really good time to sort that stuff out. And I don't believe you're going to have any resolution on this until Venus goes direct, and even past where it went retrograde, which is, I think it was 24 degrees. We want to get Venus up into the Cancer zone, right? Because in Cancer, we're dealing with issues around home. So I would wait. I would wait this out. You can't make any move with Venus retrograde.
Okay.
Let me look at this. Hold on, and then I'll get into the psychic space. Hold on. Okay, Venus. Venus went retrograde at 23 degrees. It goes direct at the end of the month on the 28th. And yeah, and then what you want to do is, at the very least, you want it to get past where it went retrograde, and that's on the 31st of July. And then you're really cooking with gas on the 8th of August when Venus goes 0 degrees Cancer. So here's my astrological advice, is that you need to, with the Venus retrograde, at least up until the 26th of June, 27th, it's going to be the 28th of June. You need to sort through details, and nobody's going to move.
Okay.
Nobody's going to move through that time. It's not going to happen. What's your sign again? What are you again?
Scorpio.
Scorpio, right. He's going to leave. He'll leave, but you have to wait him out. And the amount of bickering and arguing might become epic during this phase. But if you can be cool, you really got to be cool about it, right? And you have to. The thing with Venus retrograde is that retreat is a really important strategy. So you need to retreat. If you have to retreat at times, do that. And I know that your mother plays a role in your life. So if you have to retreat to her house at times.
No, she's part of the problem.
Your mother's part of the problem?
She's siding with my ex-husband, and they're teaming up
terrible.
against me.
That's
it
terrible.
is. I'm
That's awful.
horrified.
Okay.
Why is she doing that?
So because she's probably an agent of the Matrix. That's why, so you're going to have to find an ally. If it's not your mom, you have to find an ally, and you have to be able to retreat to that space strategically through the Venus retrograde. That's really important. It's funny because the last time we talked, I really thought that your mother was going to be able to help you out with this. When did this happen?
A week ago.
A week ago.
She's really stabbing me in the back, and do you see psychically why she's doing this to me?
All right, let me just tune in here, see if I can go off the map here. I'm not sure what this name means, but I get the name Ellen or Elena or Elena, something along those lines, and let's see.
That might be the owner of the house she rents.
Do you know that for a fact, or are you just guessing?
I think it is. I'm like 90% sure.
Okay. So it has to do with this Ellen or Elena or Elena. And it's about information she's getting from this person. And there is there's an amount of influencing that's going on here with this person, and it has to do with some form of what I'd call like psychic emulation. That your mother wants something from this person. She's angling for something with this person, and I'm not quite sure what that thing is. It could be acceptance, it could be some form of respect. I'm getting that it's more like a past life thing. Like she's really needing and wanting to be accepted by this person, and she's talking with this person. This person is influencing your mother. And
I know. I know who that is.
Yeah, so that is my sense, and this is really painful when this happens in families.
Yeah,
because,
I don't think I'll ever speak to her again.
Because there's also a piece here with your mother that does not do well with discomfort and chaos and disorder, and she's falling into kind of a trap, which is she's viewing your soon-to-be ex-husband as the dominant figure in the relationship, and she's automatically kind of ceding also her will to him. And this is very, very old programming, extremely old programming. Let me just see here. Your mother's going to have her own housing issues, by the way. She's going to have her. I don't know. I get it. She's going to have her own issues. At some point, she's going to be diverted, triangulated, and there's going to be less of an emphasis on siding with your ex. She's going to have a fire in her own backyard to put out. And that's going to be within the next 2 weeks.
Really?
And, yeah. And so it's going to be something much more immediate for her. And you're being scapegoated. No. You're being scapegoated. You're being really scapegoated. Yeah.
I've never been treated so bad in my life.
Yeah. So I'm getting.
Is it her health? It
is her health, but it's related to her house. There's something in her house that's making her sick, and it's
really?
That's why I say it's in her own backyard. It could be something having to do with either paint, asbestos. No, I keep getting backyard, so it's something having to do with either water or something that's been dumped in her backyard that the house is on, and it will be having an impact on her health, and things are going to get. She's going to get her attention is going to get drawn away from triangulating with your ex. Okay, so wait this out. Just wait this out. Within 2 weeks, her attention is going to be elsewhere. All right. Now that doesn't mean you forgive her immediately.
No.
Look, I had something happen to me with my father. And he sided with my ex in a way that I had a really hard time forgiving him.
Why do parents do that? All parents that are listening, always side with your child, no matter what your child did. That's just
I agree.
Wrong.
I totally agree with you. But here's what happens. People, there's this whole concept of. There's this one site called Montalk, montalk.com. It's a really interesting site, and the author of that site, a guy by the name of Tom, talks about this whole concept between souled beings and agents of the matrix, which are like inorganic beings. And these inorganic beings comprise about 67% of the population, and they are actually receptacles for the matrix to come in and act out through. So your mother's probably one of them, and obviously you're not, because you're listening to my radio show. So anyway, this is why these things happen. I mean, today I was talking with a friend of mine on the phone, and I'm doing this post on John F. Kennedy, who's a Gemini. I'm trying to, get into some of the deeper meanings around the Kennedy assassination. And I was talking about how, the Kennedy assassination is really the setup for everything that takes place in the latter part of the 20th century. And he went into this whole diatribe at how, that Lee Harvey Oswald did it, and don't ever go there with me, and don't ever go there with me about 9/11. And it's like, okay, well, fine. It's like, I don't think I can really trust you. You're a good friend, but I can't, I have to really be careful about, how I allow you into certain areas of my life. And I think that part of the Venus retrograde is understanding that. It's understanding where people fit in your life. And people who are becoming conscious and aware, waking up, they need to understand that not everybody is in the same place they are. Not everybody has the same kind of psychic locus, that some people are manipulated through the matrix. And
I can't meet anybody that likes all this like I do.
Well, you're on my radio show. If you go into my chat room, you'll meet a bunch of people. So anyway,
in person. But go ahead.
Oh, in person, it's more challenging. I'll grant you that. But this is why we have the internet. It allows us to have this kind of experience. It helps us. It's like a support group, really. The internet. So yeah. Well, 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Hang in there. All right. What's your other question?
Is he taking the kids, or am I going to continue to take care of his kids?
Well, that's tricky. That's tricky. I think he's going to. I think he's going to take. Here's what I think is going to happen. I think he's going to take the kids, and I think you're going to get them back. That's my sense. I think he's going to take the kids out of spite.
Yeah.
He'll force it, and then 6 months down the line, he's going to revisit you. He's going to realize he can't handle it. And he'll come back to you, and he'll try to force you to take the kids back. That's what I get. God. I get that he's going to be really macho about it. He's not going to come back. He's not going to come back and say, I made a real mistake. I can't handle this. Can you please, help me out with my babies? He's not going to say that.
How soon is he taking them?
Well, you got to be careful with the Venus retrograde. I would say that you'll clearly know his intentions by the 6th. You'll know his intentions with the Venus transit. Because if you're looking at the symbol in the family, he's the male principle. He's the sun. Venus is about. Venus is about relationships and contracts with relationships. It doesn't matter if it's whatever sign it's in. Venus is relationships. Relationships are about contracts. You enter into contracts with people. So, I would say that during the Venus transit next week, you're going to know what his intentions are. That's my sense. You'll find out soon enough. Whether or not he'll actually, do it then is another matter entirely. But you'll know by next week.
Okay.
Hang in there. You got to wait.
I know it's a mess.
Just wait for Venus to go into Cancer, okay? Because it's going to creep up and it's going to start to trine your sun, and you'll be vindicated. Just trust me on this, all right?
Okay.
Trust
me. Thank you again.
Yeah,
Thank you for listening.
Yeah, I get an image of a fire truck. I just keep coming back to your mother's house with this fire truck coming to your mother's house.
Her house is going to catch on fire?
No. It's more like paramedics or something, something about a fire truck coming to your mom's house. Just keep that in mind, all right?
Yeah, she's ill. I know she's not going to be with us up more than a year. I already know that.
Well, this is what happened too with my father. He staked his claim, with my ex, and then a year later he was dead. So.
Yep. Yeah.
I think a lot of it too is people, if they know, going back to this whole instinctual piece and anxiety, if people know on some level that they're going to quote unquote pass, which I think a lot of us will have at times, she might just be really planting her flag into something that she feels is, the most real or the most grounded or the most earth oriented and earth based, to try to anchor herself here through that connection with the father, the male principal, and all that other stuff. So, it's also quite fear-based. So, maybe that helps you. I don't know, but hang in there.
Usually.
You're tough. You're tougher than these people. I'm telling you that right now.
I'm ready to kick some butt.
You're tougher than these people. You're stronger than these people. You're smarter than these people.
And I'm a Scorpio dragon.
You just need an ally. Find an ally to retreat to while you're there, okay?
I will.
All right, Holly. Do you want me to put you on hold or just hang up?
I got to hang up. It's eating my minutes.
All right, thanks. You can always Skype in, Holly.
Okay.
All right, take good care.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. Let's go to the 540. Hey, thanks for holding. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Hello. My name's Eric.
Hi, Eric.
Hello. I called you maybe, a month or maybe a little more than that ago when you were doing astrological readings. You did a natal chart on me.
Uh-huh.
And at the time I had discussed with you that I had gone through this breakup with an ex-girlfriend at the end of October last year.
Yeah.
And, I've the last several months I was kind of in the wilderness until maybe the last month or two I've kind of felt like I've gotten my own self together again. But I've had to deal with her betrayal and betrayals of friends very close to me or people I thought were friends.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you're getting anything about that, but my information was that they kind of used information I told them in confidence, just trying to get support, and they used that to hook up with her.
Yeah, this is again the Venus retrograde. Here we go. We're finding out who's real and not real in our lives. We're finding out who we can trust and who we can't trust. And it all starts with ourselves, because I think people innately want to be loved, they want to be accepted, they want to trust, but unfortunately, we're dealing with people in our culture and in our society who have been hacked. They've been psychically and emotionally hacked, and many of them have been traumatized, and they turn into perpetrators, and it's very unfortunate. And again, keeping in mind that they're also they're also agents of the Matrix. These inorganic beings, and they can have these energies come in, and in a lot of ways, it also takes us out of our victimhood. I mean, if we're really clear, if we're really objective, we can say to ourselves, well, maybe we shouldn't have trusted those people, or I shouldn't have trusted that person, or maybe I should have been more aware, and keeping my counsel a little bit closer to myself. And these are painful lessons, but I think ultimately what we aspire to do is we aspire to hold a sacred space for ourselves, and only after vetting, real vetting, do we allow people into our inner circle that we can truly trust. And part of this is the Venus retrograde is part of this process that is it's painful. It's a really painful thing, and I've experienced. We've all experienced betrayal. It's not a fun thing, and we've even in our own way, even if we've gone out of our way to not be assholes, in our lives, we've even been on the betraying side of things. I've been there. I've done things to people that might not have looked all that great in the moment, and sometimes we're playing these roles out, and as we become more conscious, we aspire to be much more aware of our energy and our interactions and our connections with people. That's what becoming conscious and aware is about, because now we're not being moved around on the psychic chessboard. One day you're a betrayer, the next day you're the betrayed. As we become conscious and more aware, we step back and say, oh, this is potentially where I'm headed with this. Or are there other options for me? Do I just want to play this script out, the way it's been, played out over and over and over again throughout time immemorial? So getting back to your situation, when you were talking, there was the name that came to me was the name Anna, and then there was kind of this Russian derivation Anya, but it was Anna, and I don't know, what this name is or relates to you, but I get the sense that it is somebody outside of your circle, and it's somebody that you can actually trust. I get that there's a very strong connection with this person, and
do you think this is a person I know in local proximity? Because there's somebody I've talked to online by the name of Sarka.
Sarka?
Yeah.
Sarka. Interesting. Sarka. Because I don't know. That sounds Russian because the name that I was getting felt Russian. It was like Anya more than Anna.
I don't really know an Anya yet, but I've been told that I'm kind of in a transition period and that I probably would meet somebody relatively soon.
Yeah, I mean the sense that I got that there was an ally for you that was very trustworthy, but you have to vet the trust. You have to vet the. Well, see, that's the problem is that I needed somebody to trust me, and I didn't have many friends to trust me. Yeah.
They did betrayed me. And
Yeah.
I kind of and I really don't feel like I have anybody close to me I can trust at this point.
This is one of the challenges in American culture today. They've done studies on people and aloneness, and they've done these surveys, and it's shocking how few people can just pick up. How the numbers around how few the people are that somebody can just pick up the phone and call somebody and say, I feel shitty. Can we talk? The numbers are alarming, to be quite honest with you. And even though we have this wonderful thing called the internet, which we're experiencing right now, the amount of close relationships in our lives have dwindled over the years. And I'm not saying the internet is the cause of this.
But the unfortunate thing was that the people I did talk to had met this ex of mine, right? But I thought they were people I could trust. If I talk to you or somebody else, they don't know who she is. There's not really a chance of them betraying me, really.
Right. So what did you learn from this? What is the lesson you've come out of with this?
I became a lot more cognizant of the need to maintain my own energy level at a higher level. Not to let other people take my energy away. Yeah. Without it truly being a synergistic interaction, I kind of learned that my ex was an energy vampire, that she was kind of a chameleon, that she was pretending to be one thing and was really another thing, that she was perpetually going from one person to another basically because she couldn't maintain her own energy. But I also learned that some things like what you're saying earlier, you got to be very careful who you trust. It helped me go through a growing process. I've been trying to do things to improve myself, to raise my energy level, to improve my diet. I've been told that I've had my own psychic potentials and spiritual potentials yet to come. So I kind of had to retreat back into myself for a while. But I was just curious whether you saw anything up and coming for me about either new friends or a new relationship.
Well, this name Anna or Anya was the first thing that popped into my brain, and going back to our first caller with Holly, I just think that people need to get through this Venus retrograde. You don't want to start a relationship during a Venus retrograde. You can talk to people. When I say start, I'm talking about getting serious, exchanging bodily fluids, exchanging, psychic and chakric energy.
Well, that's another thing I learned is that, that sort of thing, I'm to be more cautious about that sort of thing, to be a lot slower before you trust somebody to do that sort of thing. Yeah,
it's pretty important because when you do that, sex is very powerful. When when you open up to somebody sexually, you're taking in a holographic image of them in every chakra. You're bringing them into your every cell. You have telepathic and psychic connection with them, whether you know it or not. You feel what they feel. You're aware and cognizant of what they're doing and not doing, even if it's not completely literal at the time that you're experiencing or feeling it. So we got to be really careful with who we exchange energy with. It's really
well. I mean, that ex I had, she was, cheating on me with all kinds of other people, and I didn't know about it, And of course, that impacted our relations as well. So it's.
Well, what did you feel though? I mean, you were with her. What did you feel? You must have felt something.
Well, when I was with her in sexual relations, I didn't feel very satisfied about it. I felt like I don't understand why this is the case, but I realized it was because she was at such a low level, and that she was. I don't know if she was, she just was not maintaining her energy. And
yeah.
That, and I didn't really have a sense about what was happening really until afterwards.
I'll share a story with you about betrayal. I was dating this woman. This was in 1999, and this was my second time with her. And I had let her go the first time because, quite frankly, I didn't trust her. But, she came back into my life because she was, fun and playful and sexy. And we shared a real, kind of spiritual understanding. So I let her back into my life. I let my guard down. And one night we were at this place in Berkeley having a glass of wine. We sat down, and I said to her, "It feels like somebody just stuck a knife in my back." This is before we said anything. And she looked at me, and she was quiet. She was really quiet. And I said, "It feels like somebody just betrayed me." I said that to her. And then we must have had maybe about 5 minutes worth of, bullshit conversation over wine. And then she went on to tell me that this guy that she had been seeing, who had gone to Europe for the summer, was back, and she was seeing him now. And it was just like, well, that was it. I mean, I felt this thing happen before she told me this. And we have the ability to feel these things, pre-time, precognitively, if we're attuned to our body. So
I had a sense that the relationship was not going to last before it actually ended, but I didn't really understand or know exactly what was going on.
Right. And it's hard.
Something wasn't right.
It's hard to break things off because we want to be loved, and we don't want to be disappointed. We've invested time, we've invested energy, trust into these relationships. So, of course, denial is going to creep in. Of course it's going to happen because we don't want it to end. We want to think the best of people. And then when it does happen...
Well, this is going to sound pretty outlandish, but what I later was told through various readings was that she was possessed, that she had a disassociated personality, that she had been doing witchcraft of sorts.
Right.
That she was, taking advantage of energetically hooking up with people to drain their energy. And, I think that's sort of how she got to my friends as well.
Well, I would not be surprised at all if that was the case. Sex is multidimensional. When you have sex with another person, you are allowing energies to course between the two of you. And these are energies that are taking place out of, local time and space. When we look back on, or when we get into the whole concept of sex magic and having sex-based rituals, this is what Aleister Crowley was all about and deeply into was the ability to use sex to bring in multidimensional entities. He did it on his wedding night. Actually, it was 2 days in the Great Pyramid, in the King's Chamber. This is where he spent his honeymoon. He did it, by basically keeping his wife in a state of hypnagogic euphoria and ecstasy for close to 3 days in there. So, so when we get into sex, it is really a very multi-dimensional experience. So, who you have sex with is very important. You can't just allow anybody in.
Right, it is. It's just that, I was kind of fooled by the way she was acting, and that she, I thought I had a different impression of her than I later learned. It's not easy to learn the type of stuff I was telling you.
Well, look, we all want to be loved. We all want to be loved. We all want to be accepted. We all want to be recognized. Even her, on some, very, profane level, wants to be recognized.
Yeah.
So, and she is. You're recognizing her to a large extent right now. So
I also learned that she was sexually abused as a kid, and I think that's probably where her trouble started,
Yeah. Well, there you go. Disassociation, sexual abuse, sexual trauma, sexual ritual abuse, multiple personalities. A lot of it happens in childhood. So, yeah, you're right. Absolutely. Wait till Venus goes into Cancer. Don't do anything until, we move into August. It's really important. And this person that you're connecting with online, vet them. Please vet them. But it feels mostly okay.
I view that person more as a friend, though. I don't really view that as somebody I want to try to carry a long-distance relationship with. Or anything.
Good.
But there's basically, I've been trying to go to different circles of people. I've been going to this Reiki club, basically, to learn about that, as well as to try to meet some other people.
File the name Anna or Anya away, all right?
Okay.
All right, man. Do you feel complete here?
Yeah, I appreciate your feedback and your advice.
Okay, well, hang in there, and give us a call when Venus goes direct, all right?
Thanks a lot.
All right, take care.
Bye.
All right. Let's go to Melissa, who's been holding for 40 minutes. I'm not psychic in this instance. I can see her name on the screen.
Hi, Robert.
Hello, Melissa.
How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm enjoying your show. It's the first time I've listened.
Oh, good. Well, welcome.
Thank you. I want to, and I was, I don't really have a psychic question or anything like that, but I was interested in what you were talking about with the Venus retrograde.
Uh-huh.
And of course we have, our little Venus eclipse that's coming up on June.
That's right.
7th.
The Venus transit. That's a big deal for sure. Yeah.
It is a big deal, but to me it almost seems like that just might be a bad hair day, compared to the Uranus and Pluto squares we have.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's everybody's, we're staring that down. That's a big one. That's major. 9 degrees exact. 9 is the, numerologically, 9 is the end of a cycle. And then we go to 1 after 9 theoretically. So it is, that square does represent kind of the end of one way or one order of doing things. And it's pretty heavy. And those squares, they move up, Uranus and Pluto are going to be, clashing, back and forth over the next couple of years. And it's pretty intense, actually. And then we've got Jupiter coming into Cancer in 2013, which facilitates its own squares at that time. We get into, some pretty interesting T-square action with Jupiter. So what's your take on the upcoming square?
Well, I mean, basically Uranus is everything that's invention and technology. And, Pluto is, kind of a generational upheaval. It's very non-personal. And so, the last time when we had the Uranus and Pluto conjunctions in the 60s, we had a tumultuous time.
Right.
So now, we have the exact same kind of square action that happened between 1932 and 1934 when we had the Great Depression, we had the rise of dictators, we had Hitler, we had extremism.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of technology come in after that as well.
That's right.
So, of course, it's kind of scary because you have the, this opposition, the squaring energy is, a little bit more intense than, say, the conjunction energy. So I'm thinking this, and the reason I brought this up was because of this whole, Venus eclipse thing and the Venus retrograde got me thinking about Venus.
Yeah.
And a lot of this, I have the feeling, is about a financial meltdown and how wealth will be distributed, and even food supplies on the planet. Yeah,
I think you're all over it, Melissa. If you've been following any of the economic trends, obviously Greece is the sore that just won't go away. It's the wound that just can't be healed. But Greece is just the tip of the iceberg. They've had bank runs in Spain, pretty significant bank runs in Spain, and they're not really talking about that in the press. And by the way, if Greece goes, Germany goes, because Angela Merkel has tied the fortune of Germany to the resurrection of Greece. And if Germany has emerged as one of the economic powers in Western Europe, and if Greece fails, Germany is in the shitter. So that is enormous, absolutely enormous. I've got a friend who has a friend that lives in Argentina, and they basically quarantined the Argentine peso and the dollar in Argentina. It's kind of in free fall right now, toxic free fall in Argentina, not really being talked about by the mainstream media. So you're all over the economic piece. It's huge. And as it relates to food, what are we talking about? We're talking about inflation. We're talking about paying $5 for a loaf of bread. Think about that.
Well, I think people are going to start hoarding.
Well, they're already hoarding.
Yeah.
The hoarding's been going on for the last 2 years. If you haven't noticed that, the United States government now is coming down on the emergency food suppliers. They're asking for names. They're asking for email addresses. Some of them, there's one in Utah that only does business in cash, so they have no record of anything. If you want to buy food from somebody, you may want to check them out. They're starting to come down on the Amish in a big way, because the Amish offer a lot of these emergency food supplies as well. So yeah, there is hoarding. It's happening, and yeah. So gas prices, we're in. This is very serious.
Right.
Gas prices have been high, and we're in the summer travel season when gas prices historically also go through the roof, and that has an impact again on food. So you're all over this, Melissa. I was looking at the Sabian symbol today. I was going to bring this up for the Venus eclipse. And what I got for that was a woman activist in an emotional speech dramatizing her cause. This is the Sabian symbol, and it represents, in Dane Rudier's model for the Sabian symbols, the process, which is scene 6, exteriorization. And the keynote for this is a passionate response to a deeply felt new experience. And I feel like during this eclipse, what we're going to see as a result of the Sabian symbol and with the square that you're talking about is an outpouring of activism and people on the streets in numbers that we have not seen before in a very long time on this planet. And really, for me, Uranus in Aries squaring Pluto in Capricorn is the clash of the corporatization and the hyper-corporatization of Pluto in Capricorn, and the immediate and drastic activation of will, which is Aries and Uranus, with the quote-unquote masses or the common man. And I think that we're going to see, large numbers of people in the streets during this square. That's my take.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Occupy movement. It's the
Absolutely.
Twitter revolution.
Yeah.
And I think it's really going to, be how we view wealth and how wealth is distributed and how we think about what makes us abundant. And this actual Venus retrograde is kind of helping us tie up some loose ends and things in the past so that we can move forward. Maybe we will start, thinking about things differently, like paring down, simplifying, not always thinking that our ego is attached to, our car and our house and, how beautiful we look. Our sense of wealth may have like a completely different take.
Yeah, I've been charting this since Pluto went into Capricorn in late 2008 or early 2009, and I did a whole series of posts on my site called The Melting Economy. So this was 4 years ago, and I began to talk about these issues 4 years ago. People moving back home with their parents, people paring down, looking for ways to save money, to reorder, familial relationships as a result of all of this. And, we're seeing this now, more than ever. And I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's actually a really empowering thing because it helps us, recalculate our values, which is what I think you're talking about.
Exactly. And the thing is that you do have Neptune going retrograde here in June, too.
Yeah.
And I think that people will go to what they remember about, their spirit, their inner faith, their spiritual guidance.
Yeah.
And we are seeing the rise of spiritual communities on the web. I mean, you were talking about this recently with, your last caller.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that a lot of people do feel lonely. And so they are connecting on this sort of internet, loca or experience of out-of-body communication like we're doing right now.
I agree. No, I agree. And it is happening. I also think that the Neptune retrograde it relates to the ripping away of the veil of illusion as well.
Right, exactly.
And because, we're looking at the very, early degrees of Neptune and Pisces, it's really strong. It is a really strong vibration with Neptune and Pisces. So the examples that we're going to get are very strong. They're very clear. They're vivid. They're drastic. And people are going to have to take these moments and really galvanize them and bring them into their being and own them because it's, we're living in a very important time right now. I don't think people really understand how important this is. There are about to be 3,000 drones, militarized drones that have been okayed by the FAA to be released over the skies of America.
Oh, God.
People don't understand, kind of where we are with some of this stuff. It's pretty intense. And
well, in a sense, there's been this incredible apathy.
Yeah, there has been an incredible apathy, and we've been lulled into it with cheap money. Cheap money lulled us into this. McMansions,
right.
McDiets, McFamilies. We've been lulled into this stupor.
We've supersized it.
Exactly. And that was part of the plan. And on one hand, that's what's happened to us. We've been anesthetized, and then on the other hand, we've been traumatized.
Right.
9/11. Collective traumatic events, and then you have the specter of things like Abu Ghraib. I mean, how do people wrap their heads around Abu Ghraib?
I don't think so. I think they just don't even think about it, to tell you the truth.
Where is the reference point for that? There is none.
Now, I got a quick question for you that's a little off track here. Donna Summer died recently.
Yeah.
And they said that she died from lung cancer from the dust of 9/11.
That's what she said.
That's what she said. Do you think that's true?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
I thought it was interesting.
Donna Summer was really very spiritual and very attuned. She actually had premonitions of 9/11. I don't know if you know that. But she had premonitions of 9/11 before it happened.
Oh, I had premonitions of 9. I mean, most psychic people I know did.
Yeah.
And so it was out there. I mean, Nostradamus wrote about it. I mean, we had known about that rockets were going to hit the new city for years.
Yeah.
We just thought that it was going to happen when Y2K2, and we thought it would happen in the year 2000, and it happened in the year 2001, so it took us unawares.
Yeah. It's interesting. One of the pilots of the theoretical flights of 9/11, his wife, his widow.
She recently died.
She died in her sleep, mysteriously in her sleep.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy. Like, why did she die? Like, people just don't die at a young age like that.
No, I agree with you. I would definitely.
You know, was it a suicide or was she done in?
You know, it's in the mystery bucket. Put it in the mystery bucket. I could probably weigh in, my own jaded and slanted perspective, but I think that more importantly, what we're going to see with this Neptune retrograde that you're talking about are pieces of the puzzle that are going to be revealed to us, and it's going to be up to us to put the pieces together. And I think the illusion, the grand illusion that is Western civilization, is going to begin to unravel. And I've been saying this for a while, and it's been happening. We see bits and pieces of it begin to unfold and take place. And it's just going to be up to people and how they're able to cognate the information and grab a hold of it.
Right.
And to get over their shock, get over their trauma, get over the denial, and say, this is happening, this is bullshit, this is crazy, and it's not even about what are we going to do about it. It's just allowing it in. I think that's really that's where we are right now.
Right.
Because quite frankly, I'm not sure if there's anything that we can do about it at this point except witness it.
Yeah. Well, Robert, I just wanted to call in and say hello, actually, and connect with you. So I don't want to keep you. You probably have, some other callers who, want their psychic reading.
Yeah, okay. No, not a problem. Well, thank you for calling in, Melissa.
All right. You have a great day. And just put me on hold because I'm listening to you.
Okay, very good.
All right. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, Melissa is back on hold. And one of our callers just dropped off, which is unfortunate. Here we go. Hey, you're on the show with Robert. Thank you for holding. Where are you, and who are you?
Hi. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Oh, hi, Robert. How are you? This is Oya. I'm in New York. How you doing?
I'm awesome. How are you doing?
I'm great.
Good.
So how does this work? Do I give you my information or ask a question, or how does this go?
Well, let's start with let's find out who you are astrologically. Let's go there. When is your birthday?
2/7/69, 2:10 p.m., New York City.
All right, 2/7/69. Let's just do a solar chart here for you. 2/7/69.
At 2:10 p.m.
Okay, let me get here. 2/7/69. Okay, so funny, you have the same birthday as one of my good friends, different year but same birthday. All right, Sun, Aquarius, Mercury, Aquarius, Venus, Aries, Mars, Scorpio, Jupiter, Libra, Moon, Libra, Neptune, Libra. You've got a lot.
Neptune is Scorpio. You put 2:10
I'm sorry,
p.m.?
Uranus. My bad. Uranus, Libra. Yes, Neptune, Scorpio. Yeah. So, and Mars, Scorpio, too.
Yes.
Mars, Neptune conjunction. That's an interesting conjunction in Scorpio, by the way.
Which one?
The Mars Neptune conjunction.
The Neptune melts the Mars, or makes.
Well, I think it. In Scorpio, it's very regenerative. You have a very regenerative, very healing capacity when you are really attuned, balanced, in your power, loving, open. You can really change people's lives with that Mars Neptune conjunction. in a very good. I mean, that's kind of those are aspects of the reformer, the social reformer, using groups, organizations, religious affiliation to deeply transform, empower, love people on a very magnetic and restorative level. It's a lot of power, but it must be used for spiritual ends. If it's not, you can't access it if it's not.
I can't access it
if it's not. The higher your aspiration with that Mars-Neptune conjunction, the better. The more capacity you have to love, to care. You're the type of person theoretically that could touch a lot of people's lives. I mean, at the end of the day, they would remember who you are, and some of them might even, name kids after you. Really, I'm serious. I'm not bullshitting you.
Really?
With that conjunction, you could also, it's kind of wide. It's 7 degrees, which is not bad, but you could also really work with people that have drug addictions and have been really burnt out by society. You've got enough detachment with the sun in Aquarius and the moon in Libra. You've got enough detachment where you can not take these things on and not take it personally. The one thing about your chart that is a little challenging for you is the lack of Earth. You have absolutely no Earth except for Pluto in your chart. So
and Pluto is generational. That's for everybody, right?
It is generational, but it matters. It makes a difference. It is an aspect. It is Earth. So part of how you would ground, with Earth in your chart would be through healing. It's Pluto and Virgo. It represents, a profound healing. It's service. It's psychic healing. It's organizational healing. It is, cultural healing. So for you to ground, to contact that Earth and that Virgo in your chart would be to actively get into that, to pursue that as part of your path. Not necessarily hands-on healing, but figuring out how you can bring a healing perspective to whatever it is that you do. That would ground you theoretically through Pluto. So when we look at a chart that doesn't have a lot of Earth in the chart, you must stay grounded in terms of your diet. You have to find foods that ground you. You may be sensitive to certain types of grains. You may be sensitive to wheat, but you may not be sensitive to quinoa, or you may not be sensitive to rice, or So you've got to stay grounded. Millet might be interesting. You've got to find ways to stay grounded with your diet. That's really essential. Very, very important. And taking time out to be in nature. You're in New York City. Go to the park, or do something to renew your connection with the natural world on a frequent basis, to remind you that you're on this planet. You've got all this air. Your heads are in the clouds.
They are. Well, yes. That's what I wanted to ask you also about those oppositions you see. I don't want to take up time. You may have people waiting, but the R's, do you see those retrogrades? I got enough R's to open up a pharmacy. Do you see all those retrogrades?
I do. You've got Mercury retrograde.
Don't tell the world. Don't tell the world. Just tell me about the R's. How can I heal the R's?
How can you heal the R's? Well, that's a really interesting question, because they're numerous. You've got quite a few of them.
Lord.
I would say that the one R that you need to pay attention to the most are the R's with your Uranus and Jupiter, and because it's a really close R, right? You're separated by 2 degrees, and then flipping it around. Well, the good thing is that your true node goes direct at 0 degrees Aries, and I think that that's a really important. Let's start with that 0 degrees Aries with the true node, because it's conjunct your Chiron in Aries. So you've got this really interesting conjunction with those two aspects, which for me means that you have to take a leadership role, that you have to be the one that takes the lead in relationships. You have to be the one that takes the lead in balancing out, any kind of karmic debt, or karmic contract, that you would see with the retrograde in Jupiter and the retrograde with Uranus. I think for you, the default would be for allowing other people to take the lead, or allowing other people to solve the problem, or giving other people too much credence in order to get things done, or to resolve relationship issues, or resolve contracts, or resolve just agreements on a day-to-day level, like saying, hey, you're going to do X, Y, and Z, and giving them the space to do that, and then they don't do it. That true node and that Chiron is saying, you've got to be the one. You have to be the one. You are the point person. You are the trigger person in every aspect of your life. Okay? Because Aquarius wants the group to do it, right? Aquarius wants everybody to have a seat at the table. Everybody gets a medal, right? There's no losers theoretically with Aquarius. And then Venus, with all the Libra stuff, you want everybody to come to the party with you.
Yes.
You want to invite them and say, here, you do this, you do this, you do this.
Yes.
But really, what happens is that ultimately that is not satisfying for you, because nobody's ever going to measure up. Nobody's ever going to meet you fully when you start from that place. You've got to go to that Aries with Chiron and your true node, and you're the one that's got to set the tone. You're the one that's got to set the pace. You're the one that's got to activate the will in just about any situation you're in. You must be the leader. You must be the one that sets the table. And it's okay. Everybody's going to get a medal. Everybody's going to come to the party. Everybody's going to join you. You just have to lead the dance. You've got to be the conductor. You're the one with the wand. And there's nothing egotistic. There's nothing wrong with that. It's about understanding that that's just the way it is. Set the pace and set it lovingly. You're not a bad person. There's not a bad bone in your body. Venus is conjuncting your true node, your Chiron. So this is really a very key aspect for you. And with Uranus right now, dancing with your Venus,
yes.
you know, this is really kind of an alchemical moment for you. You've got to understand this. You're the one that has to take the lead. And you can do it without being bossy. You've got that Libra moon. You've got this loving, Libra moon. But there's a time when that Libra moon has to step aside and say, this is the way it is. This is how it's going to get done. And, I love you. And there's a seat at the table for you. But unless you follow these directions, your seat can wait. And that's really, I think, the key to resolving these retrogrades in your chart is by taking the lead and applying spiritual leadership in your chart. That's where it's at for you.
Okay, with myself. Because I'm not comfortable bossing anybody. I'm not, and to be honest, which is very hard, but I'm going to suspend my ego to be honest, I think I like others to take the lead in affairs with family or et cetera, because if something goes wrong, don't blame me. And Jan Spiller mentions that in the book with the now South Node and Libra, and we won't get into all that, but because she said it just polarized me in the book, you don't want to win. In fact, you want to lose. The South Node Libra. And I said, it took the wind out of me. I was in the park reading it. I said, oh, my God. And that has been me, like, oh, no, let them do it. In case it goes wrong, blame them.
Right.
So when you say that's how I got to heal the R's, and that should be the title of my memoir, Heal the R's, to take lead of me.
Yes.
Oh, Bob, you don't know what you did for me. Oh, God.
Chiron and Aries. Chiron and Aries is tortured, by the way. It's a tortured Chiron because Chiron, especially at 0 degrees, which you have the most potent. I mean, it's the start of Aries. It's the very first degree of the freaking zodiac. Okay.
Okay.
Let's keep that in mind. You've got Chiron there. It's about learning to be a human. It's about being a human, and really kind of a realized human as well, because the 0 is the totality of all things. And so Chiron and Aries, I've seen this with Chiron and Aries people, they don't want to upset the apple cart, but when it gets upset and somebody else is doing things they don't like, they get really angry, and then they want to flip the script. Because what they've done is they've allowed other people to make choices. And I'll give you a clear example, okay?
Yes, tell me.
Good friend of mine. Love her to death. She's got Chiron and Aries, and early degree Chiron like yourself.
Okay.
And she got into this relationship with this guy, and he did everything for her, everything. He paid for everything. He gave her his American Express card. She lived off of that American Express card for 2 months.
Okay.
Right? And this guy was from India. Nice man. I met him. Nice guy. But as an Indian male, he has some very proprietary, relationships with how women should be. Right? Like deferential and answering to him. And at one point, he said to her, "You need to pay more attention to me. And by the way, I need you to stop this one activity in your life because it's taking away from the focus between you and I. I don't feel comfortable with it." Now, I don't really agree with that. But when he said that, what did she do? She cut him off. She said, "You're being too much of a control freak for me." But if you look at what happened, for those 3 months, he paid for everything. So he felt on some level entitled to have some say as to how she should show up in the relationship. And she gladly took all of this stuff in. And she didn't realize that on some level she had entered into an agreement with him even though she didn't know it, right? And so the Chiron and Aries kicked in and said, "Screw you. I'm going to, you're trying to control me." But in the meantime, what did she expect? He was paying for everything, right? So this is Chiron and Aries. She wanted everything, and she wanted to be able to run her own show. But the minute the script flipped, she couldn't handle it. She couldn't integrate finding her will, in relationship to his will. It became very clear, very black and white, very Aries. I'm off on to the next relationship. And Chiron and Aries has a really hard time dealing with power, dealing with leadership, dealing with accountability, and dealing with the self. Because sometimes they will allow other people to empower them, and then when the other people don't like it, then they get pissed off, and then they feel disempowered, and now they're trying to find their power again. Chiron Aries is tricky. There's undercompensation, there's overcompensation for will, but you've got it at 0 degrees, and it's really important for you. Really, really important. It conjuncts Venus, it conjuncts your true node, it opposes your south node.
Yes.
You've got to be, using basketball as a metaphor here, you've got to be the point guard in your life.
The point guard. I'll look up online and see what that. I'm not a sportsnista, but I'll look that up. I'll see what that does.
Okay, you do that.
Oh, Robert, I'm spellbound and at a loss for words. Thank you, and I will re-listen to this and take notes later on.
Okay. Well, thank you for calling in. I really appreciate it. Take good care.
Appreciate you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay. That was cool. Let's go to the 914. Thanks for waiting. You're on the air with Robert. How are you? Hello? Are they even there? Just sometimes I have to refresh the screen. Let me refresh the screen. Hold on. Let's find out who's really on the air with me. All right, let's try this again. Let's see if they're there again. Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, hi. Yeah, hi.
Hi. Hi.
Thanks for waiting. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Robert?
I'm great. What's your name?
This is Susan.
Oh, hi, Susan.
Hi.
Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from New York.
New York. There's a lot of people from New York on this show. It's amazing. Yeah. I've got an interesting astrocartographical connection with New York. So after I do this, after I spend time with you, I'll tell people about my connection with New York and one of the strangest times in my life in New York. It was one of the strangest times in my life, period, which happened in New York. So what do you want to talk about today, Susan?
Gosh, Well, I guess let's look at relationship. I know how new and exciting. No one ever asks that question, right?
Yeah, it's seldom asked. When's your birthday?
It's January 2nd, 1968.
Okay. All right. So that was quick and easy. Capricorn Sun, Moon in Aquarius, Mercury in Capricorn. Looks like you have Venus in Sag, very early Venus in Sag. Mars Aquarius, Jupiter in Virgo. Okay, and you've got that conjunction between Pluto and Uranus. 7 degrees, Uranus out in front. Saturn, Aries, 6 degrees. So you've got Uranus on your Saturn right now. Do you feel restless?
Oh, yeah. I feel totally boxed in, and I want to make moves to, like, I could see where I want to go, but it just seems like every time I step out to do what I want to do, I'm just totally blocked, so I've kind of given up for now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or I put things on hold. I haven't given up. I put things on hold. It just seems like a rough time to do anything.
Yeah, well, when Uranus has moved off of your Saturn just a bit by 2 degrees, so you'd still feel restless, but the exact conjunction would have happened probably about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. But that's a really hard conjunction with Uranus on Saturn, especially in Aries. You know, Saturn in Aries is challenging enough. You know, Saturn in Libra is exalted. You know, Saturn in Aries is it's all about timing and learning and understanding timing. And Saturn in Aries, the person that has Saturn in Aries wants to move. They want to move ahead. They want to exert their will. And Saturn is always pushing back on that. It's like not now, not now, not now. And there can be an overcompensation, just like Chiron in Aries with Saturn there. And the good news is that over time, see, Saturn is one of these planets that over time we learn the secrets and the mysteries of Saturn in the sign that it's in are revealed to us. We actually get better with Saturn as we get older if we're paying attention. And your biggest lesson in this lifetime is patience. It's a big piece with Saturn and Aries. And with Uranus now in Aries, there's this external force that's, you know, pressing down on you to make moves, to do something different. So when we see this, we have to ask ourselves, how can we do this in constructive ways? How can we be innovative, and how can we express our will in ways that are not detrimental and not destructive? You know, that's really the lesson. You know, how can you pare it down? How can you do small things in order to affect change and take some of the pressure off in your life? And that's an open-ended question, by the way. You don't have to answer that now, but you need to sit. It's like you need to have small victories with that Saturn. And it could be anything like taking a different route to work, or doing something to break the pattern of your day-to-day life in a way that is just fundamentally different. Like, for instance, maybe there is something that you can devote a small portion of your day. I know this sounds really mundane, but are you right-handed or left-handed?
Right-handed.
To doing a portion of something that you do every day with your left hand. Like, for instance, feeding yourself with your left hand, drinking with your left hand, maybe writing a little bit with your left hand. It's things like that with Uranus on your Saturn that you want to begin to kind of bring into your life, because Uranus is about enacting change and doing things differently and in kind of an unorthodox way. But when it sits on your Saturn in Aries, you can't really go for big, wide, sweeping changes. You have to kind of trick yourself a little bit. And and what happens is that, what would happen if you did everything with your left hand for half of a day? How would the other half of your day go? Right? Let's say, now I know that this sounds, kind of funny, but let's say you wear underwear. What would happen if you went an entire day without underwear, right? I mean, how would that change the rest of your day? Or maybe you don't wear underwear. Maybe you'd want to wear underwear for the rest of your day. I mean, it's these little things. No, seriously, it's these little things that can trigger realizations in other kinds of outcomes and relationships in your life that can take some of the pressure off of making big sweeping changes immediately. So, after we're done talking about relationships, you may just want to strategize with how you can change your life by doing these little things and innovating in very unique and unusual ways. Because, at the very least, let's just say, the world conspires to hold us down or whatever, right? Or, we don't have a right relationship with God, and we've got this programming that Yahweh is this evil and smoting God that wants to, cut us off at the pass at, every angle and corner of our lives. Well, just
oh, God, no. I'm done with that.
So some people have that. You'd be surprised. Yeah. But let's just say we have this programming somewhere inside of ourselves. These little acts of doing everything with our left hand for half of the day are really subversive against our own programming. So you need to figure out how you can have, a hand in moderate yet subversive programming and hacking your own programming. And I think that's the lesson around Uranus on your Saturn right now. Relationship-wise, Uranus it's moved off of your natal Venus. It's at 8 degrees now, so it's still in a wide trine. But I think the big news for you is going to be Jupiter opposing your natal Venus, and this is going to happen, in a few weeks when Jupiter goes to 0 degrees. That's going to be interesting because I think that there is potential with that Jupiter opposition. And Jupiter is actually going to be kind of an ally for you in the early degrees as it trines your Aquarian moon. So the potential for meeting new people and bringing new people into your life is quite real with Jupiter trining your moon. And not just any people, but these would be people that would be kind of fascinating and people that would intrigue you from a personality perspective, that that you would find that they would be interesting. They'd either be writers or artists or people that would be kind of outside the cultural milieu. And I do believe that if you play with this kind of reprogramming your or hacking your programming by doing things conservatively different or conservatively unorthodox, it would trigger, meeting new people, meeting different kinds of people, because we don't really understand, this relationship between neuropeptides, neurotransmitters. When we do things differently, we send out these different neuropeptides, and they interlock with, these different neuroreceptors. And so behaviors become relationships, theoretically. So if you do things differently, if you break the spell, if you break the habits, you break the patterns, you then set into motion meeting new and different people that represents the outgrowth of the manifestation of your neurochemistry. And I know it sounds really pat and simple, but it happens this way. I mean, think about how many times people have made changes in their lives, deep changes, and all of a sudden new people show up. It happens. That's because we're sending out different pheromonal signals. We're attracting new people as a result of that. So break the spell on a kind of an unorthodox level. Be subversive in your own life, quietly subversive in your own life, and get ready for the Jupiter-Venus opposition. That'll be very interesting for you. And stay open. Stay open to meeting new people, different kinds of people outside of your social circle. That would be my advice to you relationship-wise.
Yeah, well, no, that totally makes sense about breaking the patterns and the habits and everything. And I would think that it would give like a signal to your subconscious to, maybe shift and do something differently on the subconscious level too. It totally makes sense.
Yes, absolutely.
When I worry about relationships, it's more about the people that are already here.
Well, I tell you, if you start to do things differently, those people they're going to show up differently, and you're going to be able to figure out, whether or not they have a place in your life. I mean, this is Venus retrograde now, and this is what we've been talking about, for the majority of the show. And this is a challenging time. It is a really. I'm not going to sugarcoat this, because I think with this Venus retrograde, it cuts to the core of who we are, and it really brings into focus some of our most cherished and fundamental relationships. I'll tell you what I've got going on in my life. I have an ex-wife who is being really challenging with me in terms of money. And, I'm not a deadbeat dad. I mean, I contribute to my son's life in a very big way. He's with me 3 to 4 days, out of the week. I'm his little league coach. I take him to martial arts. I mean, I was, when my ex-wife was, working her way up the corporate ladder and becoming vice president of an internet division of a Fortune 100 company, I was the guy at home taking care of our kid. Okay, so I am not that guy. But because we're dealing with perceived inequality, she has been the one that has been, she's been on the A train all this time, and she wants to get off the A train now. She's and I am the guy who she perceives is the reason why she can't get off. But these were the relationships that we set in motion when we had our son. And now she's got really heavy with me, in terms of, what she could do legally with me. And I'm out here, I'm doing my work. I'm on the radio and I'm talking with you and I'm talking with people. I've got my blog, I've got my practice, and I'm doing my best to be of service to the world, to, actualize my skills and gifts and abilities, which if I don't do that, I'll go fucking insane, to be honest with you. And I'm doing this, and she doesn't, and I'm sorry, I'm getting personal now, but she doesn't really understand or get this and never did. All she gets is her part of the story. And for me, I'm having my most intimate and one of the most important relationships in my life threatened and jeopardized. And I'm asking myself from the most objective place, is this happening for a reason? Am I meant to even have this relationship at this time, with this being in my life who is my flesh and blood? Maybe the universe is moving me away from that. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but I'm having to look at that. Am I supposed to be doing something bigger than that one relationship? I don't know. I don't have the answer at this time, but I can tell you right now, the events of the last week have triggered that in me. And so I'm beginning to explore that, because I'm being forced in some ways to choose. And I don't want that. I don't want that to happen in my life. Trust me. But I'm having to look at that. And I think everybody with this Venus retrograde are having to look at the most sacred and intimate and theoretically trusted relationships and figuring out whether or not they're supposed to be the way they are or the way they're showing up right now. Just like when we started off with Holly in our first call, calling into question her mother, who is theoretically betraying her, taking the side of the man who doesn't give a shit about her, who basically didn't really, give her much attention, didn't really recognize her, didn't give her much care while she took care of his kids. Well, he went out and made a living, and she's taking his side. You see, this is where we are now. So in terms of your relationship to your relationships, you have to look at the exact same thing. Who are they? Are they meant to be there? And if they're not, then you've got to get really mercenary about it and say, leave the temple, leave the house. But that's up to you. This is where we are now. And it's important because, again, when Venus moves forward in Cancer, we must be ready to have relationships that will nurture us through the days and the weeks and the months ahead. It's vital. Venus in Cancer, Cancer opposes Pluto in Capricorn, okay? You know, we're dealing with these massive corporocratic forces, and we need to have relationships that will get us through the hardest of times. And that's where we are now. We're figuring that out. So that would be my advice to you.
All right, that's cool. that definitely brings clarity. And yeah, I guess it's not easy for any of us. Especially, I think it's especially hard. Well, I don't know. Is it harder for us, or is it harder for the people who, at least we're aware, you know, and we're looking at ourselves and we're working on ourselves, and, you know, I think I'm definitely in a better place than I was last year, but stuff is still coming up, you know, and I guess I don't know which is worse, knowing or not knowing. Like, there's some people that they're going through this and they're totally in the dark and they don't realize, and they're still pointing the finger, you know, at the other person or outside.
That's right. Well, I tell you what's happening. You know, we're literally, there are two planets that are emerging on this world. And there is going to be a plane of existence of the people that you talk about. And they're going to have their reality, okay? And then there's going to be people that are awake and emerging and doing their best to be conscious. Look, none of us are perfect. You know, we're all flawed. You know, that's part of being human. That's part of the human trip. And the beauty of it is that hopefully we can attend to that, and we can do our best to ameliorate, to surrender, to look to God for guidance and forgiveness, and, you know, and the things that we, you know, that we can't do on our own. I mean, I hit this patch last week, or, you know, I'd done everything in my power to deal with this person in my life, and it was beyond me. And I just said, I surrender. I can't do this. I can't. With all my astrological knowledge and all my intuition and all these tools I have at my disposal, I hit the biggest brick wall of my life. And I had let it go. I said, I surrender. You got to help me here. So part of you know, this process is that we have to invoke this, you know, this spiritual force that is loving and is there for us if we recognize it and are humble enough to embrace it and to accept it when it comes to us, to lay down our puny wills at times. You know, because there is a greater will. It's our will. It's our greater will. It's our soul that comes living and breathing through us. And we recognize that. We realize that finally. But it is a hard time. And the people that are pointing the finger, we're in a time right now where it's a reckoning. And they get to figure it out or not. And I hate to say it, but that's the case. And you know, we're going to see these two worlds begin to become more clearly defined. That's the way it is. And, you know, you need, you know, and, you know, there are going to be people that are not going to make this transition. They're not. And there are going to be people that we know and love. And it's going to be painful. And that's just the way it is. You know, and you know, whoever's here is whoever's here, and whatever's left is whatever's left. And then we're you know, and then we get to, you know, we get to kickstart this thing, and, you know, and figure out, you know, who we are apart from, you know, the dominating forces that have, you know, imprisoned our consciousness since we you know, fell under the spell of the dream of time. And that's where it's headed.
Wow. Yeah, I know. It's really hard. But I want to tell you, though, that I really appreciate your show in particular, because I listen to a lot of shows, and I study astrology for myself, and I really love what you bring to the table of your own experience, because it's so valid, and there's so many people who are going through the same thing. It's like you said, we're being faced with a choice. Everyone's being faced with a choice. And it's hard even when you know and you're aware of it and you say, oh, okay, I know this is coming, but, we never know what it actually looks like.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was going to be like this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess it's just for everybody to hang tight and just kind of sit back and observe and process. And, I'm just trying to see what it brings up in me, because, I know I have my issues too. And it's like people are rubbing against each other like sandpaper and just bringing out the worst.
Yeah, and part of it is, it's for a reason. It's like, for me to completely dismiss my ex-wife's laments would be arrogant and egotistical on my part. There's something for me to hear from her, and I'm doing my best to get, But on the other hand, there's also something for me to let go of too. So we're just doing our best, and live your life with compassion, and do your best to forgive yourself if you stumble or fall, and know that there's generally somebody there if you're really humble and contrite who will help you back up.
Right.
Yeah.
True that. So yeah, you're going to tell me about New York.
Oh shit! All right, I only got 3 minutes left. Okay, here it goes. If I go over, I'll just do this. It'll be on the podcast, not the stream. All right, so this is happening. This is in it was 1990. 98 New York, 1998 New York. I was hanging out in New York. I was flown out there by this company. It was a company that did soundtracks. Very innovative, interesting company. And I got flown out there to cover them. I was doing journalism at the time, and I wound up staying with the publicist of the company at her big studio flat in Brooklyn with her and her 3 roommates. And what happened during this week in New York was nothing short of just mind-blowing. I started to experience, right when I got off the plane, I started to experience things falling around me. And it was the most bizarre thing. And it became almost like a running joke in the entire time that I was there in New York. And these people began to notice all these things falling around me. And at one point, I was at the opening for the Virgin Megastore, which was down on 42nd or something like that. And I was there, and I was standing next to an end cap with this woman, and somebody spilled a beer from above, right next to us. And again, this other kind of, falling object thing. And then she, in turn, reacted and knocked every single CD off the end of the end cap. And these things just began to kind of multiply. And I wound up doing this, and I got into this whole thing around the fallen nature of man during that time. And I was very into the whole Montauk Project and 666 as symbolism of electron, proton, neutron, stuff like that. 666, the number of man, and falling angels. And it was all kind of a theme for that week. And then I wound up doing this interview with this guy named Barry Adamson, son of Adam, right? And he was in London. I was in the offices of Mute Records. I did the interview with Mute there, and I come out of the office or the interview, and the publicist hands me a picture of Barry Adamson, and he's sitting in this chair looking like Lucifer himself, and it's autographed, and it's from Double Agent, the Secret Agent 00666. Barry Adamson, and I'd been running with this whole theme of 666 and fallen angels and fallen man all throughout my time in New York. And then I get this photo, and my mind just melted when I got this photo. It's like, you got to be kidding me, And it all culminated finally while I'm in this flat in Brooklyn, and I'm on the phone with my girlfriend in California at the time, and there was a guy in the flat with me, and he had noticed all these falling objects around me the entire time in New York. And I'm on the phone, and all of a sudden, the roof of the flat opens up, and through the roof of this flat falls a wrought iron candelabra that held 3 candles, and it fell through the roof right next to me. And from 3 flights up, this guy says to me, "Oh, hello. I'm sorry. We're doing some work on the unit up above, and that fell and went right through all 3 floors." It was like mind-blowing, I mean, how does this thing, find me through 3 floors in that moment, right? And then he throws in this little, bit of comic relief. "Oh, by the way, my name's Ira." And it was like it was like a Seinfeld episode on acid. You know what I mean? Anyway, she's gone. I'm talking to myself now. Listen to this on the podcast, and you'll find out my experience in New York City. Anyway, thank you for everybody who listened to the show today. It was on the show. It was a great show, and what can I say? Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to stay open to what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix, and I'll be back Friday with a guest, Richard Mystical Sun, talking about his new record, Cassiopeia. I'll see you then.
In the name I am that I am, son of tomorrow, I call forth the light of the living word, beloved Elohim, beloved archangels, beloved mighty choans of the rays and the lords of karma. I call for the action of beloved Pallas Athena, beloved goddess of liberty, beloved Nada, beloved Kuan Yin, beloved Portia, beloved great divine director, beloved all-seeing eye of God, Cyclopeia. Let God's will be done, let God's will be done, let God's will be done. I demand the action of the sacred fire in this hour. Descend almighty cosmos, secret rays. I am the holding of the balance of Lord Gautama Buddha, beloved Sanat Kumara and the 7 holy Kumaras. I call upon the sacred fire, I call upon the light of God that never fails. Beloved mighty, I am present, come forth in this hour of the victory. Come forth in this hour of the victory of the God flame. I demand the full power of beloved mighty, be with us this night. Beloved Jesus, send it to me, Lord, my Savior.